Hey everyone, so this is my 2019 Mazda MX-5 Miata Club. Now, I'm probably a little bit biased, but this just might be the most pure fun that you can have driving a car. And today, I'm going to review it. Now, there's no shortage of videos on YouTube highlighting the changes that were made to the 2019 model, including the revised engine that has more horsepower and more revs, also a backup camera and the telescoping steering wheel. But in this video, I hope to show you a few things that you may not know about the ND2, as they call it. So first off in this video, I'm going to go over all of this particular car's options and equipment that it has. And then I will go over all of the other option packages and trim levels that you can get in a 2019 Miata. I will then go over where the ND models of the Mazda Miata are classed in SCCA autocrossing, which is the most affordable and easiest way for you to get involved in motorsports. I will cover what upgrades and modifications are allowed. Then I'm going to show you what I've done to this particular car, the upgrades and modifications that I've done, which ultimately earned me an SCCA National Championship. Then I'm going to do what Mazda intended, get this thing out and have some fun driving it. I'll share with you my experience behind the wheel with some suburb, some freeway driving, but ultimately we're going to get it out on a twisty mountain back road and have some fun with it. Then when we get it back, I'll put it in the garage, we'll jack it up, change the wheels and tires, load it up, and we'll head out for a weekend of competition and do some autocrossing with it. And then finally, I will give it my overall competition car review score. So the 2019 Mazda Miata comes in 3 different trim levels: the base sport, the club package, and then the Grand Touring. And you can get either a soft top convertible like this, or you can get the RF, which has the retractable hardtop. Now there's lots of videos on YouTube outlining all of the differences that each trim level has as far as equipment goes, you know, things like safety items and infotainment systems. I am going to show you the mechanical differences from one trim level to the next. Now, all trim levels come with the same revised 181 horsepower engine. They also come standard with a 6-speed manual transmission. And then there's optional is the 6-speed automatic transmission on all trim levels. So starting with the base sport, that starts out at $25,730. And with that, you get 16 by 6.5 inch wheels, a standard suspension, and an open rear differential. Now, if you're starting out and you want to build your car for a higher level of competition, the base sport's actually a great way to go. If you're going to change your wheels and your rear differential anyway and go into track competition or maybe higher levels of SCCA autocrossing, might as well save the money, go with the lighter sport package. If you're looking more to get into stock type racing like SCCA street category, you'll definitely want to get a club for that. But more on that later. So jumping up from the sport to the club, base price goes up to $29,590. But you get 17 by 7 inch wheels, a sport suspension that includes Bilstein shocks, stiffer sway bars and springs, and a shock tower brace. The club also gives you a limited slip rear differential and a nice looking front spoiler underneath the front bumper. Now on the club there were 3 different option packages. The first was a $450 iActive Sense package that has lane departure warning and smart city brake support. Then you have the 2 Brembo packages. The first is just the Brembo BBS package. As you can see, like this one, it has these BBS forged 17 by 7 inch wheels, and it comes with 4-piston Brembo front calipers that are painted red. Also, the rear calipers are painted red to match as well. And with that package, you also get these black side skirts that you see here, as well as a matching one that goes around the bottom of the rear bumper. This package also gives you heated leather seats, and it comes in at $3,770. The other Brembo BBS package is called the Brembo BBS Recaro package, and it comes in at $4,470. It is essentially the same package, the same 17 by 7 inch forged wheels, the same brakes, the same side skirts. The difference is that it comes with these Recaro seats, which are also heated. Now, moving up from the Club to the Grand Touring, base price jumps up to $30,780. Now, the Grand Touring is the more luxurious version. It has leather trim seats, Bose sound system, navigation, automatic climate control, and more. There is an option package though on the Grand Touring called the GTS package, and that's $550. But what that gets you is essentially the sport suspension system and limited slip differential out of the Club. So that's a good package if you want the more luxurious version and the items that the Grand Touring gives you, but you still want to compete in SCCA's street category. The GTS is actually a good option for that. So that covers all of the different trim levels and differences between them of the 2019 Miata. So my car is a Club package, and I got it with the Brembo, BBS, and Recaro package. As mentioned before, it has the forged wheels, the bigger brakes, and the really nice Recaro seats. It also comes in this Soul Red paint, which, believe it or not, is actually different than a 2016 to 2018 Miata. They changed the color a little bit for 2019. It's a little deeper, a little darker, a little more red than the prior one. And you'll never know it by just looking at this car, but if you put two of them side by side, you can definitely tell the difference. Truth be told, I bought this car not even knowing that, and I didn't realize it until I got it out to an Autocross event, and it was parked next to another competitor in an earlier car, and it was pretty astounding, the difference in the paint color.
So in SCCA's street class autocrossing, the ND2 is classed in C Street alongside the ND1. Now, the big difference between the ND1 and the ND2 is obviously the engine. The ND2 has more horsepower and a higher redline. Outside of that, as mentioned before, the only real difference is the things like the backup camera and the telescoping steering wheel. Mechanically, though, they're the same car outside of the engine. The 6-speed transmission and its ratios are the same. As is the rear differential, all the same. So what makes the big difference between the two cars? Well, because the ND2 has that higher red line, it allows the car to have a higher top speed in second gear, which is very important in autocrossing because you spend a lot of time in that 40 to 60 to 65 mile per hour range. However, the ND1 has a little bit more torque in low revs, so it has a little more thrust at low RPM. So that's the main difference between the two cars. So before I get into what I've done to set up my car, let me give you a little background and some cliff notes on what's allowed in the street category. So first off, wheels. You are allowed to upgrade to aftermarket wheels. However, the width must stay stock, but you are allowed to go plus or minus 1 inch in diameter, and you're allowed to go plus or minus 7 millimeters in offset. Tires must be 200 treadwear street tires. However, you can put any size tire that you can possibly fit onto a legal wheel. Shocks are allowed to be changed. You can go to single or double adjustable shocks. However, the springs must stay stock. Sway bars. You are allowed to change one sway bar, front or rear, not both. You pick which one. Exhaust, you can change the exhaust from the catalytic converter back. However, the exhaust must be reasonably quiet and must exit in the stock location. Outside of that, the only other things that are allowed in the street category is you can align the car within whatever the factory specifications are for that particular model, whatever the ranges are. And minor things like fluids and brake pads, those are all open. Outside of that, that's what you can choose. So essentially it's embracing the stock nature of the car with just a few minor enhancements. So as mentioned before, if you're looking at any Indy Miata, whether it's an Indy 1 or an Indy 2, the one that has the best components and the best performance is going to be the club. So the club comes obviously with the 17 by 7 inch wheels. That gives you the widest wheel possible. It's got a limited slip differential. You definitely want that. So you definitely want to start with the club. So I get asked a lot, well, do I need to have either of the Brembo / BBS packages? And the answer is no, you do not. Yes, I do have one. In fact, the top 2 cars at the national championships this year were both pretty much identical and both had the Brembo Recaro packages. But it's not necessary. The brakes obviously are bigger and the front brakes with the 4-piston calipers. However, it's really not necessary in an autocross environment. I can see there being a benefit for track days where you have repeated hard stops. But at an autocross, you're just never going to use the brakes that hard. So it's definitely not necessary. And in reality, probably the car you would want, which would be the lightest way to go, would be just a base club. So finally, what have I done to set my car up successfully? Well, believe it or not, it's actually a really simple setup. I chose it specifically for ease of adjustment and quick installation and just a general, simple, easy to duplicate process that anybody could do relatively easy and relatively cheaply. So I started off with just off-the-shelf standard valving Coney shocks, basically the way they come out of the box. And those have worked really well for me. They're single adjustable, meaning they only adjust the rebound. And I've used those in cars in the past and had great results. Definitely recommend that route, especially for those of you on a budget. Next would be a front sway bar. Obviously, you're allowed to change either the front or the rear, but in a Miata, you want to control the body roll because that's the big thing with the Miatas is they have soft suspension. So you want to put a big front sway bar in the car. The front sway bar that I recommend is the Carceps Engineering front sway bar kit that's made specifically for the Indy Miatas. They provide a front sway bar that a lot of national level competitors use, and it uses a large tube with more like a blade style ends with rod end end links. You definitely also want to get the bracing kits that they offer that go behind the mounting points. It helps stiffen the mount points so that you don't get any subframe tearing. So next up, wheels. One thing about the Brembo packages is that it does limit what wheels you can use in aftermarket because the brake calipers are larger and a lot of the wheels, the spokes won't clear the brake calipers. I've gone with the Inky PF01 wheels in black. It's a nice looking wheel. It's pretty lightweight, around 15 pounds, and they definitely clear the brake calipers. So for tires, I use Bridgestone RE71R tires. I've been using that tire in all of my competition cars since 2015 when that tire was released, and I've had very good success. In fact, I've been a partner with them ever since. And they provide a great tire that gives fantastic peak grip. The tires last a long time, and they actually work pretty well in the wet. So that's the tire I use, and I use them in a 225, 45, 17 size, which is definitely the size you would want to go with on the Indy 2. So for my exhaust, I went with the Goodwin Racing Roadster Sport Race exhaust. It's essentially an axle back muffler system that only weighs 11 pounds. It's got a fantastic bark to it when you get on the throttle, but actually doesn't really drone at freeway speeds. Otherwise, the only other things that I have done to my car is I have gone with Ferodo DS 2500 brake pads. They give it a little bit more initial bite, which works well in a autocross situation. And I've modified the bump stops a little bit just to fine tune the handling of the car. Finally, the only other thing that I've done is a custom alignment where we have tried to set the car up to get the most negative camber that we can in the front, and then try to match the rears a little bit. And then I set toe according to what my feel is at the time. Outside of that, it's as stock as it was the day I bought it, and it works really well. Part of the lure to the SCCA street category for me is that dual purpose. You can drive it every day and very quickly turn it into an autocross car. So that wraps up what I have done to set my car up to be a national winner in SCCA autocrossing. Pretty much everything I've mentioned that I have done to my car is available through stranoparts.com, which is a sponsor of mine, and they definitely provide the best service and any parts that you might need to make your car go fast and win championships. Next up, let's go take this car out for a drive and have some fun.
All right, we'll start off the drive with cruising through the suburbs. That is just so much fun. It never gets old. I mean, obviously this is not my first time driving the car. I'm pretty well used to it by now. So it definitely loves to rev. And it obviously makes great sounds with the exhaust on it. That being said, I will say it definitely the engine changes that they made, they're awesome, and the way it pulls and the power band is incredible. The way it pulls all the way to redline, but it came at the sacrifice of bottom end power, low end torque, and so actually the Indy 1, the 16 to 18 Miata models actually pull harder below 4,000 RPM than this car does. So when you're driving around and you know you're not doing a lot of shifting, it can sometimes feel almost a little weak without making a downshift when you get on the gas if it's at low revs, you know, especially in that 2,000 to 3,000 RPM range. Seat comfort and support is excellent. I didn't originally set out to buy a Recaro package car, but I'm very glad that I did. They are excellent seats. The imitation suede that they've got in the center really locks you down. The bolstering is excellent for support in high G cornering or competition. Lumbar support is good. Overall materials quality is excellent, and they're a quite comfortable seat. The only thing I will say is if you're going to make long trips, say longer than 3 hours, it gets a little. The biggest problem is you can't really move around. They kind of lock you into one position, and so you don't get a lot of comfort, or you don't get a lot of flexibility to be able to move yourself around a lot. And so I found anything longer than 3 hours, I needed to get out and take a break. Just never gets old. As much as I hate stoplights, and God knows there's I spent a lot of time at them in this town. But I find myself conflicted when I see a red light because it gives me an opportunity to go through the gears with this incredible shifter. It certainly loves to rev. Now I got the top up and I had the air conditioning on, so that was holding it back a little bit, but as I've said before, that's the engine Mazda should have had in the beginning. It might not be quite as racy as a Honda S2000, but it's not far behind, and it makes all the right noises, and it definitely makes getting on the freeway an easy chore compared to past Miatas. So I think the big question is, could you live with this car every day? Is it how does it stack up as a daily driver, and you know, kind of a one car does it all situation? And I think the short answer is yes. You know, you could do it. It obviously has limitations. You know, its size. There's not a lot of room. It doesn't have much luggage space. You know, if you carpool, you've obviously only got one spot for somebody, and so it has its limitations on practicality. But it does get great gas mileage, mid-30s on the highway, high 20s in town, and even in my recent drives, I think I've been averaging a little over 30 miles per gallon, and that includes some competition with autocrossing and some back road driving. So definitely it's great gas mileage. It has kind of a small tank. It's got an 11-gallon gas tank, so range is not as long. It won't go as long on a tank of gas as some cars will, but I don't think you would want to. 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours seemed to be the limit as to how long I wanted to go before I needed to get out and kind of stretch my legs. Now, one thing that I've noticed with the car, you know, as you know, this thing's light, you know, 2,300 pounds, and even though it has good aerodynamics, when you have crosswinds, it definitely can take a toll on trying to keep the car straight. You know, it's I think the lightness contributes to that some, where it makes the car kind of want to move around a little bit. So ride quality is really nice. You know, obviously this car has upgraded shocks. The Coney shocks do a fabulous job of making this a great dual-purpose car. Turn them down, and it's a great cruiser on the freeway. Handles bumps well, makes it a pretty comfortable ride. And then turn them up for the weekend when you're doing an autocross or even a track day, and the handling is really, really nice. As you can tell, it's a little bit noisy in here. It's obviously a soft top convertible. They've made a lot of strides in all the different generations to you know, get the interior as quiet as possible, but it's still noisy, you know, it's definitely going to have that as a drawback to the daily commute life. Now for some freeway driving with the top down. The one thing about top down on the freeways, really it's the noise. The wind is one thing, but it's really the noise. If you can hear the ambient around me, and I mean, again, windows are up right now, but you know, when you're around other cars, and especially big rigs and whatnot, it can get quite noisy. And if you spend any kind of a length of time in your commute, your ears can kind of be ringing when you get back. So that's top down with the windows up, and so now I'm going to go windows down. All right, well, as you can see, the wind has obviously picked up quite a bit. This is the true meaning of a two-seat sports car convertible, and definitely wind in your hair, wind in your face, and a lot more noise, as you can hear as I'm passing these trucks.
As much as I love driving top down, I could probably only handle this for so long before I would want things to quiet down a little bit. So one of the things that you'll do a lot of times when you're on the freeway is passing other cars. So I'm going to do a little test here of what it would be like when you're cruising along, and I'll leave it in 6th gear. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically do a 60 to 75 pull and go. 2,500 RPM to start. Still going. And 75. And that's about 3,100 RPM. So, obviously lots of talk about the engine and the upgrades that make this thing rev, and it's fantastic. However, the loss of torque and the lower revs definitely shows itself in a situation like that where you're not shifting down to make a pass. Okay, we've gotten off the freeway and now it's time for some back roads. What this car was intended to do. This is where this car shines. And everything from the way the engine pulls, the sounds that it makes, to the telepathic handling, where literally it's an extension of your fingertips. You can just feel everything going on at the contact patch of the tires, to what is one of the best shifters in the automotive industry. I mean, you find reasons to shift this car. It's just an amazing package. So like, I'm in 3rd gear now, and I could just leave it in the gear, you know, I mean, it's very flexible, but I just like shifting and downshifting. It is just that much fun. The placement of the pedals is fantastic. It makes it really easy for heel toe downshifts, and it just makes a road like this so much fun. So it's definitely not the fastest car I've ever driven, but I don't care, because it is that much fun. What a drive. This car is simply amazing. Everything it does communicates perfection. You feel everything going on with the chassis, the suspension, the tires. The brakes are fantastic. The transmission is one of the best I've ever driven. The shifts are just instantaneous, a flick of the wrist. And the revised power is fantastic.
in the fall, about 54 degrees, and I am on my way to an autocross with the American Autocross Series at Crow's Landing. And as you can see, the top is down, and it's a beautiful morning with the sunrise in front of me. And definitely enjoying these heated Recaro seats right now. So traditionally, especially out here at Crow's Landing, where there's a lot of open space, the courses are typically longer, faster than you would find at other events, and it's quite a bit of fun. It's run by some great people that are good friends, and it literally has some of the best competition you'll find outside of a national event with the SCCA.
Hold on, man. We're going to have you work this without one second.
Okay, here we go. Last run of the day. Run number 4. So Omaha is not going.
Dropping the hammer, taking top time of day, top packs from.
Finally, it's time for my overall score on the 2019 Mazda Miata Club. First off, the fun category. For powertrain, the engine and transmission are excellent and work almost perfect together. And it has one of the absolute best shifters in the automotive world. It's a little bit behind the specific output of normally aspirated cars like the Honda S2000, but the power is very strong for such a lightweight car, and it makes very, very good noises. Overall, I give it an 8 out of 10 for powertrain. For acceleration, this is the quickest Miata ever, going 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. But nowadays, that seems to be only above average for performance cars, so I give it a 7 out of 10 for acceleration. For handling, this is where the Miata shines, and there aren't many cars that can rival the pure handling bliss this car delivers. Near perfect steering and communication, amazing grip, yet it's still comfortable enough to live with every day. I give it a 9 out of 10 for handling. For styling, this is the best looking Miata ever in my opinion. There's no mistaking it's a Mazda, yet it's a fantastic departure from the prior generation. It has very nice flowing exterior lines and a wonderful interior that incorporates body colored panels. I give it an 8 out of 10 for styling. Weekend. This is just about the perfect weekend car. Top-down fun and easy to compete in motorsports. It's pretty hard to argue with. The only things holding this car back from having a perfect score is limited space, and it's a bit more of a fair weather friend. You're probably not going to use it very often in the winter. So I give it an 8 out of 10 for the weekend score. That makes a total of 40 out of 50 for the fun score.
Now for the practical category.
Comfort. So for a small two-seat convertible, this car is quite comfortable. However, it's a small two-seat convertible. So the Recaro seats are very nice, but they're a bit restrictive for long trips. But the ride quality is very good for a car in this class. So I give it a 6 out of 10 for a comfort score. Utility. Well, utility is probably not why someone would buy a Miata. With only 4.59 cubic feet of cargo space and very little room in the cabin, your vehicular Tetris skills better be expert level for long trips. So I give it a 3 out of 10 for utility. Economy. With 35 plus highway mile per gallon possible, this car is borderline compact commuter status. And it can run on 87 octane. So I give it a 7 out of 10 in the economy category. Quality. This car is fairly new, so time will tell on overall quality. However, in my professional experience, Mazda products over the past several years have been near the top in reliability. Hopefully the transmission issues found in Indy 1 Miatas has been cured. I give it a 7 out of 10 for quality. Pricing. The base price of a sport package isn't too bad, but with a near $30,000 base price on the club, it gets into a price range of some other very compelling performance cars. However, Mazda resale value has been quite good over the past several years, so I give it a 7 out of 10 for pricing. That makes a total practical score of 30 out of 50, bringing the total score to 70 out of 100. Well, that wraps up this review of my 2019 Mazda Miata Club. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please give me a thumbs up and share this video, and then subscribe for more interesting car reviews.